I turned my head and glanced at my twin brother sitting in the front row, David. Although we are twins, we don't look alike. Perhaps because he is the younger one, born just a few minutes after me, his health has always been more delicate. This, however, almost allowed him to take away all the affection that should have been mine.
Michael, are you sure about this?
David was now gazing at my soon-to-be wife, Emily, with a mix of deep emotion and jealousy. Their eyes met. In Emily's usually cold and aloof eyes, I saw a tenderness that was never directed at me. When she turned to look at me, her fiancé, her gaze was as cold as if she were looking at a stranger.
Weren't you the one shamelessly begging to marry me? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and finish the ceremony.
Emily raised her right hand, signaling me to put the wedding ring on her finger. But I instinctively put the ring down. Instantly, all eyes were on me. I looked at Emily's displeased face and once again heard her inner thoughts.
I've agreed to marry him, so what trick is he trying to pull now?
I sneered inwardly. Despite my wholehearted devotion, Emily saw it all as a trick. I had never wronged anyone in this relationship, yet this was the outcome. I grabbed the bottle of champagne from the table and smashed it to the ground with a loud crash.
I won't marry you.
The atmosphere in the wedding hall was tense, filled with anticipation and confusion. Emily's voice broke the silence.
Weren't you the one shamelessly begging to marry me? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and finish the ceremony.
Emily raised her right hand, signaling me to put the wedding ring on her finger. But I instinctively put the ring down. Instantly, all eyes were on me. I looked at Emily's displeased face and once again heard her inner thoughts.
I've agreed to marry him, so what trick is he trying to pull now?
I sneered inwardly. Despite my wholehearted devotion, Emily saw it all as a trick. I had never wronged anyone in this relationship, yet this was the outcome. I grabbed the bottle of champagne from the table and smashed it to the ground with a loud crash.
I won't marry you.
Weren't you the one shamelessly begging to marry me? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and finish the ceremony.
Emily raised her right hand, signaling me to put the wedding ring on her finger. But I instinctively put the ring down. Instantly, all eyes were on me. I looked at Emily's displeased face and once again heard her inner thoughts. I've agreed to marry him, so what trick is he trying to pull now?
I sneered inwardly. Despite my wholehearted devotion, Emily saw it all as a trick. I had never wronged anyone in this relationship, yet this was the outcome. I grabbed the bottle of champagne from the table and smashed it to the ground with a loud crash. I won't marry you.
The farce of today's wedding had already spread throughout the city by the time I got home. Everyone knew my engagement with Emily was off and that I had been kicked out by the David family.
Being kicked out by the David family and having the engagement with Emily cancelled, if I were Michael, I wouldn't have the face to show myself.
Everyone knows Michael chased Emily for over 10 years, and now this is his end. It's really lamentable.
What do they call this? A sycophant ends up with nothing.
Ha ha ha, Michael really can't compare to his brother. He's a disgrace to our circle.
I didn't care about these rumors at all. After all, the only people who could say such things were those like my brother David, the idle rich kids. After returning to the company, I immediately convened a board meeting.
As the largest shareholder, I can directly remove the current chairman of the company.
Without hesitation, I removed my dad from his position as chairman at the board meeting. Almost all the shareholders present agreed, as they didn't care who the chairman of the David family was, they only cared about the year-end dividends. Compared to my dad, who only came to the company twice a year, I was obviously more convincing as the chairman. When the letter of dismissal reached the David family, the people in the circle heard the news again. The original sneers and sarcasm gradually disappeared, replaced by flattery and sycophancy. Sitting in the chairman's office, I received a call from my dad.
Michael, you ungrateful wretch. What right do you have to remove me from my position?
The largest shareholder has the right to make decisions and personnel changes at any time. This is the rule you set yourself, don't you remember?
My dad was at a loss for words.
Michael, we are family. At that time, your mom and I were just speaking in haste. If you have any grievances, you can bring them up, and we can sit down and resolve them. Why make it come to this?
I sneered inwardly. Clearly, since the hard approach didn't work, he was now playing the family card.
Dad, you made it very clear at the time that you wanted to kick me out of the David family. How could I not listen to you? As for the details of the family division, I will discuss them with you on your birthday.
You ungrateful son. I should have ended you back then. You.
I didn't give him time to continue cursing me and hung up the phone directly. At the same time, doubts began to arise in my mind. Both of us are sons, so there shouldn't be any preference for one over the other. But why have my parents always favored David and ignored me since I was a child? Is it just because David's health is poor? With suspicions in my heart, I quickly found a private investigator through a friend to secretly investigate the truth. After finishing work, I was about to head home when I saw Emily and David pushing the door open and walking into my office. The secretary hurriedly followed them, nervously apologizing to me.
Mr. Michael, I'm really sorry, but these two insisted on coming in, and I couldn't stop them.
It's okay. I forgot to inform everyone that from now on, these two and their dog are not allowed in our company.
David, spoiled by his family, had never been treated like this before. His face turned various shades of blue and purple as he called out my name.
Michael! What do you mean by this?
What do I mean? Can't you even understand simple words?
You!
Just as David was about to step forward and confront me, Emily hurriedly pulled him back.
Michael, if you still have any resentment, take it out on me. David, don't get angry.
Her face showed a look of forced sadness while trying to stop him, making David feel even more protective.
Emily, you're too kind. That's why someone like Michael bullies you.
David lovingly pulled Emily into his arms. Watching their exaggerated and disgusting display, I rolled my eyes in disgust. They used to claim to be like siblings, but now they were openly hugging in front of me.
If you're sick, go get treated. Don't put on a show here.
Michael, you're still as vicious as ever. You're not even worth one of David's fingers.
Vicious? Years of knowing each other and giving my all, only to be labeled as vicious by Emily. I might as well have fed my sincerity to the dogs.
Michael, if you know what's good for you, hand over the chairman's position to Robert and leave One Corporation. It's best if you never appear in front of us again, or don't blame the Song family for being rude.
Emily was carefully protected in David's arms like a treasure, but her words were still harsh.
Ha ha. Emily, you need to understand that I am now the chairman of One Corporation. From now on, all collaborations between the Fu family and your Song family will be decided by me. What right do you have to make demands of me?
The Song family may have appeared prosperous over the years, but they were not as strong as they seemed. This marriage alliance between the Song and Fu families might be the Song family's only chance to turn things around. Therefore, she couldn't afford to miss it. Seeing that my attitude hadn't changed, Emily's eyes flashed with malice and resentment.
David, don't forget, I am also a Fu. The Fu family still has me.
Emily's eyes lit up at his words, and she gently leaned her head against David's chest. David looked at Emily with deep affection. David has been so good to me, even risking his life to save mine. I can never repay him. I watched their poor and nauseating performance with cold eyes. Seeing that I showed no signs of giving in, they finally left in defeat. After they left, I frowned.
When did David ever save Emily? In my memory, Emily only had one accident. At that time, our Fu family and the Song family didn't even know each other. By chance, Emily and I were kidnapped together. During our escape, Emily was almost unconscious, and it took all my effort to get her out. It was because of this incident that the Fu and Song families established an unbreakable partnership. The person who risked his life to save Emily was clearly me, but in Emily's memory, it had become David.
After thinking for a while, I figured it out. It must have been my parents who, while I was unconscious, lied to make sure their precious son David could gain the Song family's favor. I had been wondering what Emily saw in someone as useless as David. Now, I had my answer. I couldn't wait to see Emily's reaction when she found out that David wasn't her savior, and that the person she had hurt and despised for years was her true savior. The day before my father's birthday, I received the results of the private investigator's investigation. Mr. David, the information you requested has been sent to your phone. I had a hunch that the favoritism might be because I wasn't their biological son. But when I opened the investigation report, it clearly showed that I was indeed the biological son of my parents. Just as I was puzzled, I saw the next report and was stunned. The report clearly stated that David had no blood relation to my parents. This meant that David and I were not twins at all, we had no blood relation whatsoever. The following documents detailed that David was the son of my dad and his first love. After his first love passed away during childbirth, my dad decided to bring David into the family. But he was worried that my mom would treat David poorly because he was the son of his first love, so he switched our identities. What my dad didn't know was that his first love had been unfaithful, and David wasn't his son at all. And the reason my mom despised me and even wished I were gone was that she always thought I was the son of the other woman, and David was her real son. What a colossal joke!
Since my dad's birthday was coming up, I decided to give him a big present.
On the day of my father's birthday, I returned to the family home. But when I got out of the car, I found the house empty. After asking the family servant, the driver learned that everyone had gone to the hospital because David had suddenly fallen ill and fainted.
Jiuzhou Hospital.
I looked at the hospital's name and felt like fate was on my side. I had the driver take me directly to the hospital. This hospital was not only where I was born but also where I was treated after being rescued from a kidnapping. There were countless pieces of evidence in this hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, I coincidentally ran into Emily and my parents just as they were leaving. In the ward, only David was sitting on the hospital bed. David looked surprised when I walked in, then quickly flashed a smug smile.
Sorry about that, having mom and dad all around me, they didn't have time for you.
David, isn't it tiring to put on this act when there's no one else around?
David's smile faltered for a moment, and then I heard his thoughts.
My brother is clearly jealous of mom and dad's love for me, but he can't compare to me in any way.
Hearing David's thoughts, I couldn't help but laugh.
David, you're truly pathetic.
My words seemed to hit a nerve, and he instantly flew into a rage.
Pathetic? You're the pathetic one. Even your girlfriend prefers me. You're the one who's unloved and unwanted.
I remained unmoved by David's hysterics. But my indifference only infuriated him further. Unable to find another outlet, he began smashing things in the hospital room. At that moment, my parents and Emily finally arrived. The three of them immediately shielded David. Mary, in particular, protected David like a mother hen. Without asking any questions, Mary began to scold me indiscriminately.
Michael, what are you trying to do? How can you be so cruel? Your brother is in the hospital, and you still come to hurt him.
Michael is truly a born troublemaker.
Mary's inner thoughts finally extinguished the last bit of hope I had for maternal love. Ignoring them, I pulled out the first document I had. It detailed all the assets of the Fu family.
2 of the street shops were bought after I joined the company and made it profitable. The rest were also acquired after I helped turn the company around. Naturally, all of these belong to me.
My parents' faces grew darker as they read the document. Before I joined the company, the family had little of value besides a few villas.
Michael, don't kid yourself. No matter what, I'm still your father. You'll pay for your arrogance today.
Suddenly, John laughed as he held the document.
I've already talked to the minority shareholders in the company. They are all willing to sell their shares to me. Once I acquire their shares, I will become the chairman of one corporation again. Let's see how arrogant you can be then.
After saying this, my parents looked at me with smug expressions, and David behind them also had a gloating look in his eyes. Seeing their ridiculous faces, I laughed.
What are you laughing at?
I wiped the tears of laughter from the corners of my eyes and took out the second set of documents. It was the signed share acquisition contract.
Dad, the shares you're talking about wouldn't be these, would they?
My father quickly picked up the documents, and after seeing the contents clearly, he staggered back a few steps.
How could this be? How could this happen?
In business, nothing is certain until the contract is signed. You should know this, Father.
At this moment, my father's face had turned pale. Seeing my father's appearance, my mother rushed at me, her face twisted in anger. Luckily, I dodged quickly.
You wretched child, born of a wretched woman. I should have strangled you when your father brought you back. Then you wouldn't have had the chance to harm our family.
Emily immediately caught the key point in my mother's words and asked,
Aunt, what do you mean? Are you saying Michael is not your son?
How could that useless Michael be my son? He's an illegitimate child, the offspring of a mistress. If I hadn't been soft-hearted and kept him, he would have died long ago. But he has no gratitude at all.
Emily and David looked at me with disgust. In the circles of the wealthy, illegitimate children are the most despised.
How could my brother not be my real brother? No wonder Michael could never measure up to me, he was just the son of a mistress.
Amidst the varied expressions and contemptuous looks from the crowd, I dropped the final bombshell.
If I remember correctly, my dear brother David should have AB blood type. While my mother is AB, my father is O.
Mary looked at me with disgust.
What do you mean? No matter what you say, you can't hide the fact that you have the dirty blood of an affair in your veins.
Mary didn't understand yet, but John had already realized. He trembled as he picked up the documents from the ground, and after reading them, his face turned ashen. He then stared at David with disbelief.
How can this be? I'm type O blood. Jasmine is also type O blood. How could our daughter be type AB blood?
Hearing John's words, Mary also realized.
Jasmine? You mean your first love, Jasmine?
Mary exploded instantly and lunged at John.
What do you mean by that? Explain it clearly to me,
I said with a half smile. According to genetics, if one parent is type O blood and the other is type AB blood, the child's blood type will be either type A or type B, but never type AB or type O. Do you understand what I'm saying? John suddenly pushed Mary aside and quickly walked up to David, slapping him hard.
You wretch! You and your mother are both wretches. I can't believe I've been raising someone else's child all these years.
Seeing this, Mary was stunned. She couldn't bear to think about it, let alone admit it. Because just now, she had been cursing her own son, and the harsh words might still be lingering in the room. David, who had been pampered since childhood, was completely taken aback and tears started to flow.
Dad, what's wrong with you? Why did you hit me?
At this moment, John was furious and showed no mercy to David.
How dare you cry? You and your mother are both despicable. You are not a son of the Michael family. Get out of this house immediately.
Hearing this, David's body stiffened. He never expected that just moments ago, he was mocking me for being the son of an affair, and now the situation had completely reversed. He was not only the son of an affair, but not even John's son. He didn't even know whose illegitimate child he was. He looked at his mother with hope.
Mom, how can this be? My name is David. I am a son of the Michael family. I am your son. Mom, tell Dad.
Mary kept her eyes tightly shut, refusing to look at him. At this moment, I handed out the prepared documents to everyone.
Weren't you the one shamelessly begging to marry me? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and finish the ceremony.
Emily raised her right hand, signaling me to put the wedding ring on her finger. But I instinctively put the ring down. Instantly, all eyes were on me. I looked at Emily's displeased face and once again heard her inner thoughts.
I've agreed to marry him, so what trick is he trying to pull now?
I sneered inwardly. Despite my wholehearted devotion, Emily saw it all as a trick. I had never wronged anyone in this relationship, yet this was the outcome. I grabbed the bottle of champagne from the table and smashed it to the ground with a loud crash.
I won't marry you!
After Emily left, David stared at me with a venomous look. But I fearlessly walked towards him step by step.
David, you're truly pathetic.
In response, David started smashing things like a madman. I turned around, just about to leave the hospital room, but John blocked my way.
Michael, it's always been my fault. Dad was really wrong. Please forgive me, especially since it's my birthday today.
Dad, over the years, you first cheated, then swapped my identity with that of your illegitimate child. Throughout my upbringing, you constantly ignored me, emotionally mistreated me, and even tried to control me to become your puppet. How do you expect me to forgive you?
The smile on John's face froze. Mary then stepped forward, reaching out to grab my hand. I glanced at her and raised my hand to avoid her touch once again.
Michael, all these years, it's been my fault too. I was kept in the dark. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please don't disown me, okay?
At this moment, Mary's once well-maintained face seemed to have suddenly aged, with several new wrinkles appearing, making her look much older.
Mom, this might be the last time I call you Mom. You can see that David doesn't resemble you. The truth would have been easy to uncover if you had wanted to. But you didn't. You just blamed your failed marriage on me, using me as a tool for your anger. The harm I suffered wasn't just physical, but also emotional. I don't think I'll ever forgive you in this lifetime. Goodbye.
With that, I walked into the elevator without hesitation. Just as I was about to walk out of the hospital entrance, Emily emerged from the shadows.
Michael, it was you who saved me back then, wasn't it?
I didn't hide it because it no longer mattered.
Yes.
Emily lowered her head.
Michael, I'm sorry.
I don't accept it.
With that, I lifted my leg to leave. Emily immediately grabbed my hand in a panic.
Michael, I'm sorry. Please give me another chance, okay?
Emily's eyes were bloodshot, and tears kept rolling down. I had never seen the usually aloof Emily in such a disheveled state. But after a moment's hesitation, I pried open each of her fingers that were gripping my wrist with all her strength.
Emily, let go.
Emily stubbornly shook her head. Seeing her like this, I felt only relief.
Emily, we've known each other for 13 years, and I almost married you, you know? Now I'm very glad I didn't because you don't deserve my love.
Emily pleaded desperately again.
Michael, give me another chance. Let's start over, please. Give me another chance.
I shook off Emily's hand.
Late affection is worth less than grass. Emily, why bother?
I no longer listened to Emily's regrets and walked away with large strides. After everything ended, I returned to my normal life. I resumed my 9-to-5 routine managing the company. Under my leadership, the company grew bigger and bigger. My parents often called me to come back, but I ignored them all.
I didn't want to see them, and they didn't need my support. The dividends from the company shares were enough for their retirement.
Emily seemed like a different person. She used to be cold as ice, but now she was passionate towards me. Every day, she waited for me persistently outside my company. I turned a blind eye to it. Because some things are impossible to start over, like starting anew with someone who has hurt you deeply. At a cocktail party, I saw David. At that moment, he was holding a woman who looked older than my mother. David had been a good-for-nothing since childhood, with no survival skills whatsoever. After leaving the family, he had no financial resources, and I don't know who introduced him to this path of relying on a wealthy woman.
However, this was not my concern. I attended the party only because a friend invited me, and I couldn't refuse. I made an appearance with a drink in hand, but soon I was overwhelmed by continuous flattery. Before long, I wanted to leave.
Michael, you're very pleased with yourself, aren't you? Do you think you've already beaten me?
I turned back and looked at David in confusion. David looked at me with jealousy, his eyes full of resentment and unwillingness.
Michael, just wait. I will surpass you. Someone like you isn't even worthy to carry my shoes.
How could he surpass me? By relying on his ability to latch onto a wealthy woman? Unfortunately, even the option of having a child through someone else was out of his reach because he had a congenital kidney defect and couldn't have children. This was something I found out from the private investigator's report. He and Emily had tried countless times before. This was also the reason I heard from Emily's inner thoughts about why she wanted to marry me. Without an heir, she couldn't openly take over the family business. Such a plan could only be conceived by my foolish and cheap fake brother.
David, I'll say it again, you are truly pitiful.
I'm not pitiful. I'm not pitiful at all. The pitiful one is you. The pitiful one is you, Michael.
I didn't care about David's outburst and walked straight towards the door. After all, who would argue with an idiot?